What do you mean, a development? Her voice was barely above a whisper, and she was distantly aware that Donald had glanced at them in the rearview mirror, his expression showing the sort of polite concern that bus drivers learn to display when passengers receive difficult news. A team of worker divers discovered some evidence this morning at the bottom of Lake Tappan. We have reason to believe it may be connected to Eliyahu and Aviel's disappearance. Lake Tappan, the name hit her like a physical blow. She knew the lake everyone in the area did it. It was a popular recreation spot in warmer months, surrounded by hiking trails and picnic areas. It was also deep, murky, and surrounded by enough wilderness that someone could dispose of ... things without being observed. The thought made her stomach clench with a mixture of hope and dread. Moshe gestured for the phone, and Rivka tilted it between them so they could both hear. His construction worker's pragmatism kicked in immediately, asking the questions that her emotional mind couldn't quite formulate. What kind of evidence? His voice was rough with the morning and with barely suppressed emotion. Sir, I understand. You want details, but this is something you need to see for yourselves. I'm sending officers to your home now to transport you to the site. We're not home, Moshe interrupted, his practical nature overriding social niceties. We're on the bus, heading to work. The 57A route. A pause. I see. Can you come to the station instead? We can arrange transport to the site from there. Yes, Rivka said immediately, not even consulting with Moshe. Work could wait. Work always waited when it came to their boys. We'll come now. Good. Ask for me when you arrive. And Mr. and Mrs. Steinman. Detective Keller's voice softened slightly. I know you've been through a lot these past 11 years. We're treating this with the utmost seriousness. The call ended, leaving them staring at the phone in Rivka's hand, as if it might ring again with different news, better news. News that would make sense of the past 11 years of searching and hoping and gradually learning to live with the unspeakable dot around them. The bus continued its route, oblivious to the earthquake that had just shaken their world. Donald navigated the familiar streets with the unconscious competence of someone who had driven the same route thousands of times. But Rivka noticed that he kept glancing at them in the mirror, his usual cheerful demeanor replaced by something that looked like concern. I need to call work, Moshe said, already pulling out his own phone. His foreman would understand. The construction crew knew about the Steinman tragedy, knew that there were times when family emergencies took precedence over pouring concrete or framing walls. The construction industry, for all its rough edges, had a surprisingly compassionate heart when it came to matters of family. Rivka nodded, already dialing her own workplace. But when she reached her supervisor at Goldberg's Kosher Bakery, the response was markedly different. Again, Rivka Rohan Mira's voice was sharp with irritation, cutting through the phone with the efficiency of a well-honed blade. This is the third time this month, Mr. Mira, the police called. They found evidence last week. It was a family emergency. The week before, a medical appointment. We're short-staffed as it is. Rivka's jaw clenched. She had worked at Goldberg's for 7 years, had arrived early and stayed late, had covered shifts for sick co-workers, and had never complained about the physical demands of industrial baking. But Rohan Mira, the bakery's owner, seemed to view her periodic absences as personal affronts to his business model rather than the inevitable result of a family living in perpetual crisis. This is about my missing sons. The police need us at Lake Tappan immediately, and I need my baker here immediately. You think I can believe every excuse? The cruelty of it took her breath away. 11 years of documented tragedy, of police reports, and newspaper articles and private investigator bills that had driven them to the edge of bankruptcy, and he called it making excuses. Bring me an official letter from the police tomorrow, or don't bother coming back, Rohan continued, his voice cold and businesslike. The line went dead. Rivka stared at her phone, anger and hurt warring in her chest. Behind the practical considerations, they needed her paycheck. They couldn't afford to lose this job, was the deeper wound of being dismissed, of having their tragedy reduced to an inconvenience in someone else's day. That man, Moshe muttered, having heard enough of the conversation to understand what had happened. His own call had gone much differently. His foreman had immediately offered to cover for him and had wished them luck. He could hire more staff, but he keeps you and Sarah working like slaves. He pays overtime, Rivka said weakly, though the defense felt hollow even to her own ears. Not at the cost of your dignity. The police station stop was approaching, and Rivka reached up to press the stop request button. The electronic ding echoed through the empty bus, a small sound that seemed to announce the end of one phase of their lives and the beginning of something else, something that might finally provide answers. Donald glanced at them in the rearview mirror as he pulled to the curb, his expression showing genuine concern. Not heading to work today? He asked as they gathered their things. Police found something at Lake Tappan, Moshe explained briefly. About the boys. Donald's face shifted, the easy cheerfulness replaced by something more complex concern. Certainly, but also something that Rivka couldn't quite identify. It was there and gone so quickly that she wondered if she'd imagined it. Lake Tappan. That's actually my last stop on this route. Goes all the way out through Oakland to the Ramapo area. 45 minutes by bus, at least. We'll have police transport, Rivka assured him. It'll be faster, of course. I hope it's good news. Donald's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles showing white against the black plastic. Those boys were good kids, always had their bus fare ready, always polite. Thank you, Don. Rivka managed a small smile. We appreciate. That they stepped off the bus into the brightening morning, the October air sharp in their lungs. The police station loomed before them, its brick facade somehow both reassuring and ominous. A patrol car was already waiting in the visitor's lot, engine running, exhaust creating small clouds in the cool air. 2 uniformed officers emerged as they approached, their expressions professionally neutral but not unkind. Mr. and Mrs. Steinman. Detective Keller sent us. We'll drive you to the site. The ride to Lake Tappan took 20 minutes in the patrol car, its speed urgent despite the silent siren. Moshe held Rivka's hand the entire way, neither speaking, both lost in memories of 2 boys who had vanished on a Friday morning 11 years ago, leaving nothing behind but questions and heartbreak and the gradual erosion of the life they had. Built together, the patrol car crested the final hill before Lake Tappan, and Rivka gasped at the scene below. What should have been a quiet morning at the remote lake had transformed into a hive of activity that spoke of something significant, something that warranted multiple jurisdictions and specialized equipment. Police cruisers from Teaneck, Oakland, and the Bergen County Sheriff's Office lined the access road, their red and blue lights painting patterns across the water's surface. Regional authority vehicles were parked haphazardly on the grass, and workers in reflective vests moved purposefully around the shoreline with the sort of organized efficiency that emergency responders bring to major incidents. The October morning had brightened considerably during their drive. revealing the full scope of the operation. There were dive teams preparing equipment, forensics technicians setting up processing stations, and investigators with notepads and cameras documenting everything. It looked less like a missing persons case and more like a crime scene. Rivka realized with a sinking heart, might be exactly what it was. Quite the operation, the officer driving commented, navigating carefully through the assembled vehicles. Haven't seen this much activity out here since that plane crash back in '03. Detective Derek Keller stood near the water's edge, his tall frame easy to spot among the crowd. He was younger than Rivka had expected when they'd first met 3 years ago, perhaps in his early 40s, with the kind of intense focus that suggested he took every case personally. He looked up as their patrol car approached, raising a hand in acknowledgement and immediately starting toward them. Mr. and Mrs. Steinman, Detective Keller greeted them as they emerged from the vehicle. His handshake was firm but gentle, as if he understood that they might shatter at any moment. Thank you for coming so quickly. I know this must be difficult. Where exactly did they find the evidence? Moshe asked, his construction worker's practical nature asserting itself even in the face of overwhelming emotion. About 40 feet down, in the deepest part of the lake. Follow me, please.